Chapter 2, Lesson 5, The Northwest and the Arctic. You are there. Spring has finally come. For weeks, the village elders have been noting the wind's direction and watching the stars. They have decided that today is a good day to go hunting for a whale. The whale hunters will take the village's biggest canoes. The hunters carry with them their longest, heaviest harpoons, long spears with sharp shell points. If the hunt is a success, there will be singing and dancing to welcome the hunters home. Whalebone artifacts. The whalebone artifact at the top is the carved figure of a walrus. The artifact at the bottom may have been an art object or a tool. A macaw whale hunt. The chief harpooner showed his respect for the whale of singing a special song, promising to give the whale gifts if it has allowed itself to be killed. A region of plenty. The Northwest Coast, also known as the Pacific Northwest, stretched between the Pacific Ocean and the mountains to the east. It included parts of what are now Oregon, Washington, and western Canada. Cool ocean winds brought heavy rains to the region, so forests grew tall and thick. These forests and the rivers that ran through them were filled with fish and other animals. People of the Northwest Coast. Many Native American groups, such as the Kwakiutl and the Makah and the Chinook, lived in this region. Instead of farming, the people of the Northwest Coast met their needs by fishing and hunting, and by gathering plants and nuts. The coastal waters were an important resource, and salmon was a staple food for most groups. Whales were an important resource too. Whales supplied not only food, but also fat, which could be melted into oil to burn in lamps. Most groups, including the Kwakiutl, captured only whales that had become stranded on the shore. In contrast, the Makah hunted whales at sea in large dugout canoes. These boats, each made from a large hollowed-out log, carried up to 60 people. Reading check. Compare and contrast. How were the whale hunting methods of the Makah different from those of the Kwakiutl? Turn the page. Resources and trade. The giant trees that grew in the forests of the Northwest Coast provided many groups with food for houses, tools, and boats. Makah villages stood near the Pacific Ocean, a common location for many Native American homes in the Pacific Northwest. Family shelters. The shelters of the Makah were like those of the Iroquois, but larger. Makah longhouses had a frame made of wooden poles, which could reach 60 feet in length. The walls and floors were covered with wide boards. All the members of a clan or extended family lived in the same longhouse. Grandparents, parents, aunts and uncles, and children lived together. Each person in the clan had a specific rank. Clans made important decisions about village life. Clans also taught younger members songs, stories, and woodcarving skills. Wood was so useful to the people of the Northwest Coast that they made almost everything from it. Dishes, spoons, and other utensils were made of wood. They also carved totem poles made of wood. These tall posts usually showed one or more characters that were used to tell a story or to welcome visitors or traders. People traveled long distances on the region's waterways in order to trade. Trading was a large part of the region's economy. An economy is the way the people of a state, region, or country use their resources to meet their needs. The Dalles. The best-known traders among the Northwest Coast Indians were the Chinook. The Chinook lived at the mouth of the Columbia River, which they controlled from the coast all the way to the Dalles, about 200 miles upriver. The Dalles was the center of the trade network because many groups gathered there, but the different languages they spoke made communication difficult. The Chinook were able to profit from trading at the Dalles because they developed a unique language for trade. It was made up of Chinook words as well as words borrowed from other Indian languages. This language allowed them to barter or exchange goods on behalf of two groups who spoke very different languages. A potlatch. Trade and natural resources made many Northwest Coast groups rich. One way they expressed their good fortune was through a celebration known as a potlatch. A potlatch was meant to show wealth and divide property among the people. Potlatch means to give. Historians think that the Kwakiutl, who lived along the coast of what is now Canada, helped develop the potlatch custom. A Kwakiutl potlatch was a celebration with dancing, food, and speeches. Reading check. Generalize. Why was wood important to people of the Northwest Coast? A Northwest Coast village. Illustration. It is thought that there were hundreds of people living in the many villages along the Northwest Coast. What important resources of the Northwest Coast are pictured below? Dugout canoes were used for fishing. Salmon were dried for food. Some clothing was made of cedar bark. Totem poles stood in front of many homes. Baskets were made with long, thin strips of wood. Turn the page. Lands of the North. The Arctic is the region near the North Pole. This land is mostly a flat plain where the Earth stays frozen year-round. One Arctic group, known as the Aleut, lived along the coast of the Aleutian Islands. One group closely related to the Aleut were the Inuit. These people lived in what is now Alaska and northernmost Canada. Life in the Arctic. Because of the climate, few plants could grow in this region. The Inuit and the Aleut hunted foxes, caribou, and polar bears. They also used harpoons and kayaks to hunt seals, walruses, and whales. A kayak is a one-person canoe made of waterproof skin stretched over wood or bone. Resources were limited, so nothing was wasted. The people caught seals not only for their meat, but also for their skins, which were made into clothes and tents. Oil was used to light and heat houses. Even the bones were used to make tools. The Aleut lived together in large houses with beams made of whalebone and walls made of sod. During the winter, some Inuit lived in homes made of ice, called igloos. Other Inuit families lived year-round in tents of animal skin or in sod houses. The extended family was an important part of Inuit and Aleut society. Inuit groups, for example, were usually loose-formed bands of 60 to 300 people made up of several families. These families came together to make important choices for the good of the group. The people hunted and traveled together, often sharing seal meat in order to survive. The Inuit family worked together and learned the skills they needed to survive in an icy land. The Inuit made carvings from whalebone. The artifact on the right shows an Inuit whale hunt. Life in the subarctic. South of the Arctic is the subarctic region of North America. It stretches from what is now eastern Canada to what is now Alaska. People of the subarctic region, such as the Cree, relied on hunting and gathering to meet their needs. The Cree lived over a wide area across what is now Canada. Trees provided the Cree with wood to meet their needs. Since the long winters kept them from being able to get food by farming, they used bows and arrows to hunt for game. Some Cree groups divided the land so the people had an area to hunt as their own. Other groups roamed freely. Reading check. Compare and contrast. How did the shelters of the Aleut differ from those of the Inuit? Summary. The rich natural resources of the Northwest helped form a society based on hunting, gathering, and trade. The Arctic and subarctic peoples adapted to life in a land with limited resources.